It always comes to this. Hello there guys, back again to another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off the fresh red nebula, or nebula red by Fusion on my face here. And that was done over 3 layers of red velvet fusion, and under that was 2 layers of black on black, covering a dagger and a rose on my sideburns and my previous face frame. So if anyone ever thought that a certain amount of layers would mean the end of a tattoo, or that you couldn't do any more over it, I have thus disproven that. At this point, I could go over that red with pretty much anything and it would still work. Chiefly if I wanted to further detail out some black on black stuff, or black on red now as it were, it would be very easy to do so, as evidenced by all of the spider web and the eye on my shoulder here. So really is no limit to what you can do if you're, you know, wanting to. I also did this other tentacle here. I'll show off this guy here. That's all healed now. So that was about an hour's work, highlighting and kind of refining the color in that one. And then we did about 20 minutes on the little green guy, and those are both, of course, healed. And everything is just a little bit dry between the two of them. I don't even know if I lotioned them today, to be honest with you. There was so little trauma and pain after the session on those that it was very, very easy for me to forget that I even had them tattooed. Sometimes it's like, especially when I'm getting multiple areas tattooed in the same week, like for example, I've got part of an arm healing, part of my side, part of my stomach, you know, my face, whatever. Like it seems like my body is healing each piece quicker, not slower. I've had people wonder if it maybe divides the healing up, like across the areas, and things don't heal as fast as they would if they were singular. But what seems to actually happen is it's like even during that session, the pain and swelling leaves the area as soon as we're working somewhere else. It's like my body is signaling like I have better things to do, or more recent injuries to deal with. Keep up. It's always the case that by the time I get tattooed by Terry, what Rick and I have done is mostly healed. And same thing, by the time I'm done with Terry, well, and I'm getting tattooed by Rick, everything from the previous week is healed up for the most part. And if anything, it's just a little dry. So again, when I say healed, I don't mean fully, like the whole, all the way through the stages. I mean all the shedding, flaking is done, and the color is mostly what it is. And all of that really happens within the first few days. Everything after that, there's no open wound, and I consider it basically healed. Some people will go and say things like, well, the tattoo isn't fully healed until like 6 months or something, and maybe there's some truth to that, but it's realistically, when we're talking healed, we mean the first layer. Not first layer, the first additional healing happens later, but the first part of healing happens within the first few days. For most people. Some people heal a little slower, and that could take up to a week and a half, I've heard. But for me, it's usually 2 to 3 days, and sometimes even by the second day, I'm fully shed. So, for example, my face tattoo, other than my chin, which is fully peeled now, by the way, I'll get back to the chin in a minute, fully passed, or the healing was fully done. The first stage of healing was done within the first 2 days, except the chin. The chin took about 4. So for reference, it's Tuesday, and I had all this done on Thursday, and my face has been peeled since Sunday. I woke up Sunday morning, had my shower, and there was basically nothing left of the skin that had to flake off. And the result is we got the basically the fresh red velvet look. Like I was saying, I like the way red velvet on black looks better, on my face in particular, better when it's fresh than I do when it's healed. And so I figured that the red velvet or the red nebula would do that. When mixed with all the layers of red velvet, it just goes in there and brightens everything up. It's not going to be quite the same color as what I have on the eyes on my torso, because those don't have any prior layers of red velvet in them. They're just straight nebula red over black. And so this isn't just nebula red on its own. This is nebula red mixed with red velvet, and it has the same look of red velvet. It's just got a increased intensity, boldness, or vivacity, or whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry, I'm a little spacey. I just had a 4-hour session with Rick that I will get to, I promise. But I left something out of the last video. Part of my last session was we redid my chin completely, and it's now been done, I think, 8 or 9 times. I've been keeping loose track of it, but it was all pretty fuzzy, and there was one spot that had a little scuff mark in it from something that happened, or I don't know what happened with it, but it had that kind of like thin black look to it, where you could tell that the ink was dropping out of it or fading off, and so I wanted to redo it, just that spot even. And it was Terry's idea actually to try and dot all of it in again. He redotted the whole line of the outside of it and then filled it in with dots, because once he got into it, he could tell that it was all pretty fuzzy. And so, again, chin tattoos, they don't hurt, so it was a matter of like, what's the difference between 2 minutes and 10 minutes of work, or whatever the hell it was. Chin tattoos on me, and I've heard from others, they tend to bleed a lot, and when you're bleeding a lot, you lose a bit of saturation with it. So, but it looks pretty sharp for now. We'll see how it does. Obviously, this is fresh peeled, and the black will go back. It's currently darker than my forehead by a shade. It's about as dark as the bats, which somehow are still very dark. It's now been almost a year since I had them done, and they're not really fading much, so we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure what to expect with this, and I'm hoping for the best. If I have to touch it up again or do it again all over, it's fine. I don't really care. It's whatever. I've just accepted the fact that chin, like the knuckles, is a hard one to saturate for some reason. Maybe on someone else it's not, but for me it's like, or someone that doesn't care that much. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, which is why I would never black out my palms, by the way, because all of those little nicks for me need to be ironed out. I need the saturation to be wall to wall, or else it's going to bug me forever. So, but yeah, it's all healed now, and it has a nice transition from the neck to the face, and I'm pretty sure it's going to hold up about as bright as it is now. It might darken a little, but where it was very, very dark red, all the goal was to brighten that same red up. I didn't want to change the red. Had I wanted to change the color of the red, we would have used Really Red, which has more of an orange tone to it, where Nebula Red has kind of a cherry, pinker red to it. I knew that going over the red velvet with that, it would be basically just a brighter version of what we had. So anyway, now that I've done talking about all that, Rick and I had a big session today throughout my entire inner bicep, up to the stretch of my inner forearm through the ditch, the arm/claw of the creature. And I figured we'd just do that chunk on my inner bicep. Now, I would love to be showing you guys off this tattoo fresh, obviously, but I'm actually going to leave the blue wrap on until I get home, because there's quite a bit of saturation in there. And I usually wear the blue wrap for a few hours, and I just want to let that kind of soak up the extra plasma and all that. And of course, then I have to drive home after, and I'd like the additional comfort of having the blue wrap there. Usually with sessions with Rick, we only do a few hours. We usually only do an hour and a half to 3 hours. So there usually isn't that much like plasma afterwards, but I do anticipate quite a bit. And I don't use Saniderm. People ask me all the time. I prefer to use these blue medical wraps, and I only keep them on for a few hours, and I essentially dry heal. I do a little bit of Aquaphor. There are people who push back on that now. There's always new products on the market. Like, people are always talking shit like, oh, well, Aquaphor clogs your pores and all this stuff. It's horse shit. That just find the one that works for you. I've been using Aquaphor for 20 years, and to be honest with you, I've tried every product on the market, and I have been a Saniderm guy in the past too. And if you like it, fine. I had mixed results with Saniderm, and most times I found it was more trouble than it was worth. My body heals naturally very quickly anyway, and one of the only 2 infections I ever had Saniderm involved in it, and I do blame it for that infection. We did a rewrap and something must have got in there that time. So for me, it's like I heal really easily and effortlessly and quickly anyway. I don't need the additional risk. I also don't find that it's made a difference in the overall brightness of color tattoos. I am somewhat of an authority on the matter, as a lot of my original suit was done with and without the Saniderm wraps, and the overall color saturation was more or less the same. Most of that saturation happens during the session, not post-session. It is possible to fuck up a tattoo, of course, but usually a very well put in tattoo isn't just going to fall out depending on the person's aftercare. Unless they really do something wrong, it should be fine. Now, we use Saniderm here at the shop every day, but we are dealing with a lot of people who, they don't have a lot of experience with tattoos and otherwise don't get tattoos very often, and I think people tend to overcare and overworry about things, and so Saniderm is better for those people who are a little less aware of their body and how they heal and things like this, or are a little less involved with tattoos in general. This isn't me saying that if you are a tattoo veteran, you should never use Saniderm. Maybe it just works better for your skin in general. But like I found a lot of people have breakouts and things, or they'll be allergic to the adhesive or some chemical within the Saniderm wrap itself somewhere on some level. I've seen chemical burns. I've seen, like I said, I've seen people cut a hole in their Saniderm and drain it and then tape it up. Yeah, I've seen the draining and taping method. That's a thing. I've seen people do that. It's fucking crazy. You would never think that someone would do that, but people do all kinds of crazy things when they think there's something wrong with their tattoo. And Saniderm does prevent a certain amount of that, but it also opens up room for another certain amount of panic and people seeing like ink sacs and little air bubbles and freaking out and getting paranoid and stuff. Usually a bad result for the client for healing isn't undercaring, it's overcaring. The guys who do nothing are usually fine. The guys who do too much usually have problems. It's always the case that when I'm hearing from a client that had a problem, they're healing, it's like, oh, well, I washed it 6 times, and I put all this ointment on it, and I made sure it was nice and wet, and it's like, okay, well, tell me more about how you destroyed your tattoo, Less is more, and I know I've heard this before from people. I shouldn't be able to say less is more when I've had multiple bodysuits, and look how complicated and elaborate and goofy this fuck it all is. And I'm sitting here with a 70-session sleeve. Less is more should be off the table for Remy, right? Well, not when it comes to aftercare, no. Because I do very, very little with aftercare. I barely think about it. People ask me all the time, what's it like healing tattoos every day of your life? And I gotta tell you, I barely notice. I'm not in pain right now. When I go home, it's like the tattoo's over and so is the healing. Because I already know, I've been through this a million times. It's just live. Live and have good hygiene, basic hygiene, and don't overthink it, and you'll be fine. So with that said, that's session 70 now in the books, and You know, I'm not surprised, and I'm also not surprised that we've got a lot more to do. This will easily exceed my original anticipated 60 to 80 sessions. I think we could be well over 100, but as long as I still see progress, and today there was a big amount of progress. There'll be pictures in here, and obviously I'll show it off the next video I do. But as long as I see progress and not diminishing returns, we're going to keep this thing going steady. So don't be expecting it to end anytime soon. We got a lot more to do here. Especially with sessions like today where we did 4 hours and we made good progress. It's inspiring to continue. With all that said, I don't have a session with Terry this week. My next session with him, I'll either be doing the rework of the background of my torso that I've talked about, or one of my armpits. And if I did one, it would be this one. It needs to work more. It's only been done one time with color on black, but we'll see. I'm not sure which way we'll go. Both will be getting done over the next month. I've got 4 sessions in mind for the front right now, 5 potentially. And from there, there'll be a big difference still to come. Even with all the rework that I've done on my torso in the last few months, there's still a lot more to do, and it will look a lot better very soon. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys here again probably next week. I'm not anticipating making a second vlog this week, and I will be enjoying the pretty much week off from tattooing, believe it or not. Alright, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.